Welcome. We are playing Monsterhearts 2 with the Gauntlet. We are playing the second session of Absolutely, a game of Monster Hearts set in the Palace of Versailles during the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. We have two new characters joining cast this week. But first, let's find out from some of our original cast what happened last time from their point of view. So let's hear from Father Jean the Fae.
Last time, it was very much a session about getting to know the court. Father Jean spent his time determining some secrets from other members of the church, both cardinals, and extracting promises from Francesca de Melli, one of the Queen's favorites, and the maid of the Duchess of Morrow, the King's supposed first mistress. He's inverted commas prayed deeply with Francesca, and is quite why he is settling on them to extract promises from. It's not clear, but he's a man on the make, I think.
I am playing Lorenzo Marie David, a castrato from Rome who is newly into the court. He is thrilled to be there, to be making his way up as a young, promising singing sensation. As he has arrived in court and started making friends, Father Jean has caught his eye. So as a mortal, Lorenzo has chosen Father Jean as his lover, his interest. There has been very little interaction between them yet. I think at this point, Lorenzo has been keeping his passion for Father Jean a bit under wraps, but he's absolutely bursting with anticipation of seducing the good father. And also there was some talk of a recital, which Lorenzo invited the Queen and some of her closer friends to, including Florent. Florent is a military officer, a dashing military officer, who greatly enjoys killing, perhaps a little too much. So they were among the companions of Lorenzo in a boat when Lorenzo invited the Queen to a recital to hear him sing in a little salon. That was at the end of last session.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the Queen was only too delighted to attend the little soiree to hear your singing voice. Okay, so let's hear now from Orly, the vampire, and I guess as well as a brief intro, let's find out why we mightn't have seen her last week.
Certainly, Aurélie de Chatillon is the vampire. I'm David, by the way. Sorry, I didn't start on the character name. She is a dowager countess, and in fact, actually, I think the reason why she was not around last time is that she has only recently come out of mourning for her dearly departed husband, over whose death she has been quite broken up. She is quite an imposing woman. She's got very sort of steely gaze and an aloof look, and there's a hunger in her eyes and ambition that's perhaps slightly out of place amongst the people in court. She dresses finely, as befits her station. She obviously, in deference to fashion, she has her skin powdered very, very pale with very bright red lips. And yes, she has just recently arrived at Versailles, or possibly returned to Versailles.
And for a vampire, your backstory options are...
So my first one, I think, is quite simple. Yes, I am beautiful. I gain a string on everyone. So that's an easy one to start off with. My other one is that somebody once saved my unlife, and they gained 2 strings on me. So I guess, does anyone think that might have been them?
I think it's unlikely to be Father Jean.
Yes. If you have been in need of medical attention, it's not unlikely that they have been calling me to help you.
Yeah.
As I'm a doctor.
Oh no! In fact, I quite like that. So yes, as I said, I think Aurelie's husband has recently died, or well, has passed away in probably the last year or so. She's been in a period of mourning, as appropriate. And I think maybe you were called in to treat him. And yeah, you realized that it was the Van Helsing style, the unmistakable marks of being fed upon by a vampire. But you maybe helped cover it up to avoid any suspicion from falling upon Valerie.
Yeah, sure. So I know that you're a vampire.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Good. Then I mark 2 strings on you.
Yeah.
There you are.
So Jean-Baptiste is a vampire just another kind of quasi-human curiosity to you?
Yeah, he just before I met Aurelie and discovered her secret, I thought, okay, blood flowing, pulsing through their veins, that's what makes life. And then I met this vampire and I realized, okay, apparently there's life without blood being pumped through her body. So that's, she's a curiosity and abnormality and something I need to study. Maybe she holds the secrets to what people call life.
Okay, awesome. So then, Jean-Baptiste, let's get a quick intro from you and maybe a reason that you haven't been at court recently.
Jean-Baptiste von Kempelen is a very tall, earnest-looking man, accurately dressed always, never smiling, and just gazing at people with his soulless eyes, just staring at them all the time. He hasn't been at court last time because he was called to the Duchess, La Duchesse de Rhône-Alpes, remote cousin of the Queen, perhaps. And that's why he, as the court physician, was sent there to help her, I don't know, deliver a baby or something more serious. I don't know. At least he was there for a couple of weeks, and he just returned yesterday, a few days ago, back to court. That's why he wasn't here last time. And in terms of backstory, the first one is you've been taking your social cues from someone. Also, maybe I should say, so I woke up one day realizing that I'm there, no memories of my former life, no idea how I came there and who my makers were. I realized pretty quickly that I'm sort of a thing, like a clockwork. There's a little key that I need to use to wind myself up like once a day or twice a day. And on my forearm, there was a tattoo, experiment number, a long number, and written in red ink under that tattooed failed. So apparently I'm a failed experiment, but aside from that, I know very little about my past. Since then, I'm studying people, and the first part of my backstory is you've been taking your social cues from someone, and doing so has taught you a lot about them. Gain 2 strings on them.
I think that might be Lorenzo, because Lorenzo is, while relatively new to the court, has made quite a splash recently. Caught many people's eyes. Is very flamboyant in an unusual way, and so that might be Lorenzo.
Okay, great. So I've been studying you, taking my social cues from you. It's interesting because you say you are very flamboyant, and I'm this sort of down-to-earth, earnest kind of person. Maybe every now and then I'm trying to sort of imitate you, and probably being completely awkward when I do this. Okay, good. So 2 strings on you, Lorenzo. There you are. Good. And the second part of my backstory is someone has seen through your invented past and realized it's all lies. So I never went to the University of Heidelberg, and apparently I never studied medicine, which is worrisome. They gain 2 strings on me.
My elder brother studied at Heidelberg, and I'm sure we've talked about the university.
Oh. And I didn't remember the name of the one professor there. Everyone knows.
Apparently not. But you yes, I'm sure it was just slipped your mind.
Yes, okay. But then you started realizing I've never been to Heidelberg, obviously, because I know very little about the city and custom of the people, etc. So yeah, 2 strings on me for you.
I'll take.
Great.
So, Father Jean, when this occurred, I mean, did you ask around, or did you merely keep it to yourself, or have you pressed in any way on this charlatan?
I'm not convinced he's a charlatan yet. He appears capable as a doctor. His conversation is perfectly sound, but there's more to him than meets the eye. So I think that I know that he's not who he says he is, and so far I've kept that to myself. He might have to promise me something to keep that quiet.
Okay. Orly, was your late husband the first person you ever killed through feeding, or has there been somebody at court that you have fed upon and perhaps killed?
He was the first person I intentionally killed by feeding upon them. I think there was another when I was turned, which was probably a few years ago now. I think I had at the time been having an affair with someone at court, and I think after I had been turned, I lost control the next time I met them and killed them. I think maybe their spouse recognizes me, but I obviously look the same as I did, maybe 10 years ago, sort of thing.
Do you want to identify a spouse for us amongst the existing NPCs, or?
Yeah, I'll have a look on the. I think maybe Madame de Breville's husband, if that works, or possibly former husband, depending on her current marital status. But
I guess her current marital status is having an affair with a king, right? That's how we established it last week. So
cool.
I don't think we said really if she was married or anything like that. But yeah, Let's put her down. And Jean-Baptiste, is there anyone at court who, maybe just through kind of casual social interaction, or maybe you're their physician, but who strikes you as being, far too nice for the company they keep?
That's a very good question. Let me see. So, trying to figure out who's who. Who is the Duchess Moreau? She's close to Sebastian, the ghost, who's not with us tonight.
I have in my notes that Duchess Moreau was late to the court last time because her son recently has a fever.
And there is, I guess, a suggestion from kind of a rival faction, which is headed by Francesca de Mairi, that was merely an excuse, and she's just not at the center of the Queen's attention any longer. So I think that works if you want to pick her. I think.
Yeah, Francesca. Well, yeah, why not? I mean, if she sort of fallen out of favor or is not at the Queen's attention, a center of attention, well, maybe
Duchess Moreau fell out of favor, and Francesca was spreading the rumor that she fell out of favor.
Right. Okay. Okay, so it would make sense to pick the Duchess, right? Good.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's take...
and it could be that you were in fact treating her child for some kind of fever, right?
Yeah. And yeah, so what was the question again? Someone who appeared as way too nice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. The Duchess Moreau.
And I guess, how has she shown you that kindness?
Yeah, before we started the broadcast, I already established that Jean-Baptiste recently, I mean, he's still searching for this spark of life and the secret behind it. And he recently discovered sexual intercourse as a way to approach that secret. And since then, even though he's not the most charming person, he's just trying to, use every opportunity he could get just to, get sex. And he was treating her son with that fever, and maybe successfully so, and she was very grateful, and and the rest, just happened. And he didn't even, need to seduce her. She just wanted him. He was very surprised, and he's still writing in his diary notes about that and what it means.
I'm sure those salacious details will never get out.
No.
Okay.
Just as a note, if it ever should happen, this is a very dry, sort of technical diary. He's sort of thinking like a machine, and his descriptions are completely unemotional. So he describes the angle and the way she screamed, and why, and at which moment she pulled his hair, all that technical stuff.
Cool. Let me see. Orly, you've been at court for a while, and I'm sure that you have heard numerous rumors about the king, maybe recent or maybe from before he ascended to the throne, and about his relationship with the queen. What's the rumor that no one believes except you, and how did you find that out?
That's a good one. I think, I think it's rumored I think it's rumored that the Queen, the Queen controls more of the foreign relations, sort of through her husband than people would think. People don't really credit it much because they they don't think it's really her. She's just a sort of butterfly kind of thing. But I actually believe it because I have seen previously when I was in court, and I think when I was at court before, it was in a much more servile position. I was possibly just a sort of lady in waiting to, not even lady in waiting, sort of basically a slightly fancified servant. And I think I saw her receiving correspondence with sort of the official seals on it, sort of thing.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think we have the Duchess Moreau was invited to this soiree, right? By Lorenzo along with the Queen, and I think maybe she has asked Jean-Baptiste to check in with her child, maybe, and just to make sure everything is okay. And she has let slip a detail of her invite to you, and maybe thinks it would be a great opportunity for you to get to know other people around court, and she's sure that no one will object to you attending. Well, it'll be music, she says to you, and it's always very interesting to see how people react to Lorenzo's singing. It's simply divine.
Yeah, so I heard. I mean, I studied Lorenzo for quite a while, and know a lot about him, but never really heard him sing in public. So, yeah, I'm curious to see emotional reactions. I mean, these human beings are so incredibly emotional, and they even have the ability to what do they call it? This when water gets into their eyes. I must look it up.
Crying, dearest. That's what we call it. Crying.
All right. Right, I remember. It's very odd that you do that. Why exactly do you do that?
We're French, more emotional than you Germanic folk.
Oh yes, that is right. We are people of intellect. We don't have emotions. I remember now. I'll be pleased to hear Lorenzo sing.
Well, I'm sure his music will affect you more than you think possible, Jean-Baptiste.
Do you think that? Why should it? I have to think about it.
Well, we shall see. Around court, when you return, Orly, how are people acting around you? And they know you're in mourning, but still you show up in maybe your non-mourning clothes. It's been a year, so I'm wondering how do people react, and how do you plan to use that reaction against them? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I am. Yeah, I keep doing that. Yeah, so I think that that people are a bit. I think people are almost surprised that she has come back because obviously now that her husband has died, whilst she's obviously still an aristocrat in name, she isn't she doesn't really hold any title now. So I think there's a bit of surprise and almost pity for her, I think. But I think that the way she intends to capitalize upon that is to essentially show how in control she is, to sort of show her composure and her wit.
I think when you arrive and maybe when you start to kind of make your presence felt around court, I'm wondering, what do you see? What do you see in the palace that makes you understand that Madame de Breville is still very much in favor with His Majesty?
I think it's the way people defer to her, which is sort of entirely out of proportion to her status. People who definitely sort of outrank her are sort of not groveling, but are sort of paying court to her rather than the other way around.
Okay. Let's see if we can't get Jean and Lorenzo together. Do you think, Lorenzo, you practice singing in your chambers or maybe in the chapel where obviously the best acoustics are?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was a choir boy and I performed mostly in churches. I even performed in the Vatican choir on a number of occasions. I love singing in churches, and I'm I probably spend a great deal of time in the church. I may even go to confession on occasion.
So I'm wondering, Jean, maybe when you get into chapel, Lorenzo is practicing. I want to know how hearing his perfect voice makes you feel closer to God, or maybe further away from God than ever.
Yeah, I think probably it stirs that feral fey nature that he normally is able to turn on and off, but it probably worries him, and so I think he'll probably scurry through the chapel to the confessional box because he's due to take confession, thinking that in there he will be closer to God and perhaps protected from these urges.
And not long after you enter the confessional booth, sort of almost awkwardly soon after you enter the confessional booth, Lorenzo ceases to sing. And at first you may think, oh, Lorenzo is done. But almost immediately the other box, the door to the adjoining confessional room opens. And you can tell from the overpowering perfume that, and which is a distinctive scent from that which is common in the French court, from this Italian perfume, that this is Lorenzo who has arrived in the other box.
And so I open the little slot between the two, so the grill is between us, and staring steadfastly ahead so that the grill is to the side. It is, my son, you're in the house of God. what is your confession?
Father, I've been struggling greatly with my feelings. I fear that I'm letting God down, and I do not know what to do. I'm so lost.
It is so easy for us to feel we have lost the way to God, and there are many ways to seek to get closer to God. I have
Yes,
begun.
yes, and I feel like my passion is bringing me closer to God, and yet it feels so wrong, Father. So wrong.
Well, I have begun to offer certain people the opportunity to get closer to God, and perhaps that would be the way that you could ease your troubled conscience.
Well,
Would you join me in prayer this evening?
why yes, yes, of course. Yes, I mean, well, yes, I will.
Then would you meet me at the entrance to the maze at dusk?
Oh,
I find that in the outdoors we are all closer to
lovely.
God.
Yes, yes, I shall meet you there. Very, very good. Thank you, Father. My heart is beating so fast now. I don't know what else to say.
Say 3 Hail Marys. Go with God, my son. I will see you this evening.
I'm wondering if this counts as a promise.
Oh yes.
I'm very happy for that to be a promise.
I will. Yes, Lorenzo will promise to be there.
Fine, thank you.
Perfect.
Go with God, my son.
And the door closes.
Orally, I think in the kind of hubbub of getting ready, you see the queen, who is detached from her usual company, or at least her late company, the Duchess Moreau, and seems, I think, quite put out by Madame de Breville's closeness to the king. Are you going to approach her, try to wheedle your way into her company, or merely, I suppose, put it in the bank for later? That's, I guess, what I'm wondering.
Sure. No, I think I will approach the queen, or at least sidle towards the queen, whichever way is the appropriate manner of getting near to a queen, and I will curtsy deeply, obviously, and say, I hope it is of no intrusion, Your Majesty. I merely wish to say how glad I am to be back in your radiance once more.
Of course, welcome back to court, Orly. I do hope that your heartbreak won't keep you from my company. I have to visit my physician, for he has warned me that when I get upset about things, I should seek to take some medicine from his cabinet. If you will accompany me.
But of course, my lady, I would be more than happy to do so. And thank you for inquiring after mine own heart. I have had time to acclimate myself to the loss of my husband. I feel my heart is becoming whole once more.
when you're this close to the queen, I think maybe she has taken your arm as you walk through the corridors. How does she smell? How does the blood beating through her veins make you feel?
Yeah, I think there is that sort of richness to the smell of her blood. There's a power to it almost, where obviously, you know, the normal smell of blood is coppery. There is just almost as if it were more like gold flowing through her veins, I think. And I think as without being too impolite, she probably will, as she's sort of walking with the queen, she probably will draw just a little bit closer to her than perhaps propriety would allow.
Do you think you have any kind of trouble resisting feeding on this kind of powerful blood that's so close to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think I do at the moment. I think it is something I'm having to put conscious effort into, but I think I made sure to be well fed before coming to court. I think if I were not as, I think if I weren't sort of quite as in command of myself as I am at the minute, I think it would be a struggle.
And I think, you know, there's conversation about, you know, the usual stuff and nonsense as you head to Jean-Baptiste's quarters or his office, whatever the setup is. I think maybe when you arrive there, Jean-Baptiste might be in another room, maybe seeing a patient or maybe doing some kind of experiment. I guess, what kind of thing did they see in your office, Jean-Baptiste, that makes them, that might make them understand that you're not quite normal, you know, or maybe they would cast this as kind of your brilliance and your complete modernity.
So when they enter, my laboratory consists of 2 rooms connected by a little door. There hangs a large mirror so that when they enter, they can just look into that mirror and see into the next room where they see me having unbuttoned my shirt. And I'm not sure if they catch it immediately, but apparently it's like I'm pulling a key out of my chest, which I've been winding. But the next moment, I just close my shirt quietly, realizing that someone is in the next room, put on my coat, just fix my what do you call these things? 18th century ties, whatever.
Yeah, ties, or I guess cravats. Or,
cravats, you know. Yeah, that's the word. And turn around and enter the next room, close the door behind me, realizing that it's the queen. I do exactly as it is described in the court books. If it says that you have to bow at 45 degrees, I use 45, not 44, not 46, but 45 degrees. Your Majesty. And I nod to Aurélie, looking very briefly at her mouth and at the queen's artery.
So yeah, maybe I imagine that even if Aurélie is completely in control of her hunger, you know, maybe her fangs have started to distend, or you can see the hunger in her eyes.
And I think as she sees the doctor, she will curtsy to the doctor, obviously, but I think as she sees the doctor look at her and sort of traces his eyes, she will withdraw her fan and gently waft it in front of her face.
Doctor, I remember the discussion we had previously about when certain feelings started to overcome me, that I should come to you for some kind of tincture or medicine to distract me. I think that might have been your advice.
That is very true, Your Majesty. Do you want me to fetch the medicine for you?
Indeed, some kind of bottle that I can sip from, maybe if the moment takes me, whenever whenever these feelings threaten to overcome me.
I have it ready in the next room. Unfortunately, it's on the top shelf. If Aurélie, what's your last name? De Chatillon, right?
That's right. Yep.
If Madame de Chatillon is willing to accompany for a moment, if that is no problem and inconvenience for Your Majesty.
No, I'll just sit here and peruse your shelves from afar.
Again, I bow in the perfect 45 degrees and invite Aurélie de Chatillon to follow me into the next room.
Yeah, I'll again courtesy to the Queen as well and sweep after the Doctor.
Closing the door behind us, I start sniffing. You have not tasted, have you?
No, I thought it might draw too much attention. Though what flows through her veins is not an ordinary vintage.
Do you think it is true that their blood is blue?
Perhaps. There are certainly rumors about the Habsburgs.
Interesting. Well, the reason why I wanted you to accompany me is I have a few rabbits here I used for experiments. If you are really hungry, before you feed on Her Majesty, I mean.
Well, I suppose a little snack wouldn't hurt me.
Be my guest. I just make some noise to make Her Majesty think that we're looking for the medicine, and I start instantly to rummage through stuff just to make noise.
And I think she's going to reach into the cage and extract a rabbit. And I won't go too graphic here, but I think she is going to feed on the rabbit, but she's going to do so in a way that she's sort of basically going to do it whilst fixing the Doctor with a gaze, and just a little trail of blood runs down the side of her lips. She'll drop the body to the floor and lick her lips. That was delicious, and I would like to try turn on there if that's all right.
Yes. Well, all the while the Doctor just has, after making some noise, he just from a drawer took a notebook and started making a few notes while watching you. Very mechanically. It's like he was constantly looking at you, but writing in his book and nodding a few times. It is as I thought. Very interesting.
Did that? Sorry, just see if I can get the. There we go. Oh, that's
So, I guess Jean-Baptiste, I'm wondering what about this process really maybe lowers your opinion of Orly in this way that makes you maybe think of the Duchess Moreau in terms of how, you know, fulfilling your relationship with her has been.
Yes. So, do you have does Orly have a mirror image, a reflection in the mirror?
Let's say no, she doesn't. I think that's quite a fun one to play around with.
As we already established, there were mirrors. So the moment when you're trying to, you know, sort of whatever it is you're doing, to, you know, capture my attention, I realized that you don't have a mirror image, and I start scribbling down into my notebook. And whatever you do, it can possibly distract me from my research I'm doing. So for a second, I was like, okay, maybe I should have said, oh wait, she has no mirror image. This is fascinating. And I get this cold, soulless scientist stare at you. You're just an object.
Nice.
And just as you're kind of exchanging, or as you're writing these notes down and very interested in this scientific specimen, the door behind you opens and the Queen sees Orly licking the blood from her lips. I'm not sure she sees the bunny rabbit or anything more than that, but she definitely sees the immediate kind of aftermath on your face.
Nice.
As an habitual liar, I just walked towards you and said, okay, I told you this medicine might hurt for a while, but your tooth will get much better quickly. It should be over in a few minutes. You should feel no pain.
Thank you, Doctor. That is most kind of you. And she'll dab delicately at her mouth with a handkerchief.
Your Majesty, forgive us that we let you waiting. But, you know, a terrible toothache is something that needs immediate attention. Here's your medicine, Your Majesty.
Thank you. You're not quite sure if she believes it, but she doesn't say anything further. She just takes her medicine and bids you adieu. I wonder, in terms of where Lorenzo and Father Jean live in the palace, are they close to your office? Will they maybe meet the Queen or see you leave?
It just occurred to me that Lorenzo is feeling a little anxious about the big salon that he's going to sing at, and that he might be going to see the good Dr. Jean-Baptiste for something to soothe his nerves a little.
And for Father Jean, are you in the vicinity, or are you maybe walking through the maze in preparation for your rendezvous?
I think I know the maze like the back of my hand. So I think I'm probably doing secretary work in the suite of rooms where the Cardinal works. I've got no particular urge to meet the Queen at this point.
Okay. In terms of the Cardinal's work, is he fully on board with these peace plans that have been going on with England, or is he in that kind of party at court, or has he got other things on his mind?
Yeah, I was skimming my notes, and I think that that he is on side, not as on side as the out of favor Cardinal was, peculiarly. But I think he realizes at the moment he doesn't have the leverage to discredit Lord Brock, for instance. were the opportunity to find some evidence to discredit Lord Brock, I think the Cardinal will be quite keen.
So is he having you do his some paperwork, or do you think he might send you off to be some kind of a spy, or to find an angle for him to be able to further his agenda?
I'm trying to remember if Lord Brock had been invited to the soiree.
He had been, yes. Yeah.
And so I don't think the Cardinal is going to turn up, but I think he'll be quite pleased to know that I've been invited. And so it's very vague. It's Jean, keep your ear to the ground about this Brock fellow. I'm not sure I trust him, and I want to make sure that he has that we're not being disadvantaged in this potential treaty.
And I think maybe he has given you, I guess, a heads up with regard to the more martially minded people at court who probably want this conflict to continue no matter what. You know, it may be that they are allies, but it may be that you have to swat them out of the way for the good of the realm. You know.
And from Mother Church.
Exactly. Well, the realm is the church, really. You know, that's the Cardinal's position.
Just while we're dealing with the Cardinal, I know that he's had a fling with Lorenzo, and I'm curious to know whether he has genuinely repented. And so I think I'd like to gaze into the abyss, which is what we Catholics call prayer, on this. So dark, yeah, okay. Which is that one. Okay. Oh, well, there you go. We'll take that experience, and clearly God is not particularly open-minded at the moment.
So I think what you see, maybe you're back in the chapel, you know, kneeling on the stone flags at the nave of the church, and through the stained glass window comes this strange, eerie, blood red light. Even though it's not, you know, it's not in the right direction for sunset to be coming through these windows, and you feel some kind of a presence behind you, something that you have felt from time to time in the woods, in the maze, when you felt lost. It's that kind of a presence. And it says to you in this very kind of gravelly voice, "The Cardinal is mine, child. He will never repent his sins. And why should he?"
So Jean's hands are gripping the rail in front of the altar, knuckle white, but he can't turn. He simply is unable to turn to see who this or what this is. But it certainly informs his thinking.
Okay, good. Let's get in one scene with Lorenzo going to the doctor, and then we'll take a break. So maybe the Queen has left. Maybe you see her in the corridor, going the other way as you knock on the door. I'm not sure if Aurélie is still there, getting some some advice or further study from Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. If Orly's fine with being,
I think yeah, that would make. I think maybe Aurelie is sort of about to leave as you come to the door. But yeah, I get the feeling that after the scene that she just saw, the Queen did not invite Aurelie to accompany her back. So yeah, she didn't leave with her.
So Lorenzo enters and nods to Aurelie. I don't think we're very well acquainted. Hello, Madame de Chillon. It's very good to see you here. I've come to see the good doctor, Jean Baptiste.
Yes, the doctor is in his chambers. I have just left him myself.
Is that you, Lorenzo? I'm hearing. I'll be with you in a minute.
Oh, excellent, doctor. Excellent. I'm looking forward to your ministrations. So, Madame de Chillon, I don't know if you've heard, but there's going to be a salon coming up soon this afternoon, and I'm going to be singing there. I do hope you'll be able to make it. I love it when your presence is around the court. I haven't seen you much lately. I've mostly only heard of you, and it's a great honor to make your acquaintance. I would love for the opportunity to sing for you. If you can make it, it would mean the world to me.
And I should love to hear you. It would be a pleasure to hear a demonstration of your talents. If you would have me there, then I will be more than happy to be in attendance.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful! You just, this is wonderful news for me. I'm so glad, so glad. Well, if you'll excuse me, I would have a word with the good doctor.
Of course, I would not impose on you whilst you are engaging in discreet matters with the doctor. She will curtsy and move to the door and let herself out.
And Lorenzo enters the doctor's office, and the door opens with very quickly, and Jean Baptiste, you feel this sort of gush of wind from the door just being whipped open, and Lorenzo, his silk shirt is a bit puffier and frillier than even most men in this court, and he launches himself into the room and quickly, swiftly, gracefully closes the door behind him and turns to you and says, "Doctor, I do not know if you've heard, but I am performing later today, and I do have some nerves. Would you have something that could help ease them?"
As quickly as you entered the room, you started speaking, I think, even though the doctor still had his back turned to you. He is bent over a desk and he's doing something which you can't really see, but now he turns to you and you can see that he's dissecting a dead rabbit and just, having it opened and just murmuring like, it doesn't seem to be a virus. Interesting. Oh, Lorenzo. Forgive me, I didn't exactly hear what you were saying.
Lorenzo looks at the dead rabbit and is rather shocked and says, "Oh, doctor, I did not realize you were busy probing flesh that's so carnal." And Lorenzo is thinking now of many times that the doctor staring soullessly, almost studyingly at Lorenzo, which Lorenzo has always taken to be a sign of flirtation, has always taken it to mean that the doctor is studying him because Lorenzo is so beautiful, and suddenly Lorenzo feels very flushed and a little bit blushing slightly under his white makeup, and Lorenzo steps toward you, Jean-Baptiste, and puts his hand out toward you and says, I could use your services, doctor. Will you help me? And Lorenzo is trying to turn you on right now.
Yes, the doctor is standing in front of you, looking at you, and his hands are still bloody, full of, oh no, not so bloody because there was little blood left in that rabbit, but you know, there was still a little bit left, and that's on his hands, looking at you while you're trying to turn me on.
I shall roll. An 11. So, let's see. Gain a string on the good doctor and they choose a reaction from below. Would you like me to read them out to you? Or do you have this?
Yeah, please. I don't have them on my desk now.
You may give yourself to me. Promise me something you think I want, or get embarrassed and act awkward.
The last thing is not something that I probably ever do. So I look at you, and the moment I start to realize what you're trying to do, you can see how I very slowly, with my bloody hands, open my white shirt, leaving blood marks on it, button after button. And you can see how my gaze curiously goes down, inquisitively asking if a castrato is able to perform. Maybe if you have a very good ear, and as a musician you probably have, you can even hear me slightly whispering the words, castrato, perform. And while I keep unbuttoning my shirt.
I think this is a moment to fade to black and perhaps refer to the sex moves in our sheets.
Yes, and so you gain a string on me, right?
Yes, and I gain a string on you for that.
Yes. I mean, the string could be that you see a little sort of keyhole where in the middle of my chest. Could be a wound or something, but you know, could be a keyhole.
I'm imagining like the keyhole on a wind-up mechanical toy that you insert a winding key.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent.
Shall we
read the sex moves for our characters?
Yeah, let's read the hollow one first, and resolve that, and then let's go to the mortal one.
Yes. Oh, this is beautiful. Since this is the first time I'm playing Hollow, wow, this is fantastic. When you have sex with someone, both players secretly write down whether the sex was confusing or soothing for that character. If you reveal the same answer, both characters mark experience. Confusing or soothing.
So I guess online
so we each say for ourselves. So I say if it was soothing or confusing for my character.
Exactly.
But sorry, secretly at the same time. So I guess you can write it into the chat, and then you can hit enter when we count down from 3. Maybe that's the easiest way of doing it.
Okay.
Let me know when you're.
Okay. So on the count of 3, are you ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3.
3. Okay. So, okay, it was confusing for me to see that and how you could perform, and it was apparently soothing for you.
Yes, I got what I came for. I definitely feel my anxiety greatly eased, and I feel ready for the recital. I feel light as a butterfly, and with the canary's song. Now I should read my sex move.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? It's on the sheet somewhere here. Oh, no, that's not it. Here it is. When you have sex with someone, it awakens something sinister within. The next time you take your eyes off them, they become their darkest self.
Wow. Phew. Okay.
So maybe let's hear what the Hollow's dark itself is, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah. My body is a prison. So your body is a prison. You do not belong inside of it. You need to put it in harm's way and make it suffer, just like it's made you suffer. There's got to be a way to cut yourself out of it. You need to meet your makers and hold them accountable for what they have done to you. To escape your darkest self, you must come to see how someone else feels more trapped than you do.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The mortal always causes trouble. Yeah. Okay, so we say take a break, and we'll be back at 20 past. That
20
sounds
past.
okay,
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay.
So, I'm not sure how we want to do the timing of all the scenes here, but I had a notion that it would be fun if Lorenzo missed the promised meeting with Father Jean because he was still engaged with Jean Baptiste at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, everything has taken more time than anticipated. Maybe the time of the rendezvous was quite specific. And of course, there is a recital to happen later on, so no one's waiting around for long, are they?
Just a rule query, really. I mean, I'm curious now. Now that Walter's Lorenzo has indulged himself with Dr. von Klempler, is the doctor now Lorenzo's lover?
No, I'm pretty sure if I'm reading it right, there's nothing about that.
Right. So
you're still my lover. You still have my heart, Father Jean.
Right. So there's a capital L lover, and then
yes,
as many lowercase lovers as you like. Just as long as I know where I stand.
Yeah, fair question.
Yeah. So it is capital L lover, as yet unconsummated, but still at Lorenzo's heart, you know. Okay.
I was just wondering because I've never seen the Mortals sex move before. How do we define taking eyes off me? Off of me?
So I think basically when Lorenzo leaves, you know, and maybe you stay behind in your office for a while, you know, we maybe on camera we would see this slow change, this realization from Jean Baptiste. So I think it's not immediately, but you know, it's, I guess, if this was, you know, Buffy, it would be the next morning or whatever. But I think fairly soon afterwards, when they have left your presence, is the way to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the alternative is that you don't. You because I did wonder whether this was a way of reflecting fascination, and that you can't let them out of your sight, or but if you do, bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I think you know, whatever makes most sense for in the Lorenzo Jean Baptiste moment, you know, whether Lorenzo is staying around or going off to prepare for the recital, or maybe not realizing that he is missing the rendezvous with Jean. There's plenty of things to drag Lorenzo away. But you know, just as suggested there, if Jean Baptiste does want to follow Lorenzo around in fascination, then you know that works perfectly as well. And it's merely later that the darkest self begins to overcome him.
Okay. Well, let's just say I like the idea of this being a process that just like the Buffy example. It doesn't happen like immediately, but it develops over time, maybe over the evening of the performance or whatever. So the first sign that Jean-Baptiste notices, as soon as Lorenzo has left, he goes back businesslike to his diary and starts writing, and then he just realizes that he, for the first time since he's keeping this diary, used an emotional term to describe his own feelings. What the? And then he waits for a second, and while he does, holding the feather over what was it called, the quill over the paper, it just the ink just drops onto his diary without him even noticing. Yeah, that's the first sign of whatever has happened to him.
And the darkest self bit also forces us to direct a question about Jean-Baptiste's makers. So who made him? And obviously, when we introduced Jean-Baptiste, he doesn't know who made him. His origin is a mystery. But I wonder, maybe someone who has been at court for a while, someone like Aurelie, might suspect, the true origins of our hollow. If that sounds fair to you.
Oh, absolutely. So personally, not my character, but I personally imagine them to be some kind of mad clockmaker, whatever kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, sure.
So maybe not an immediate question to answer for Orly, but maybe at the recital we shall. Someone shall be there who will remind Orly that they are the originator of Jean-Baptiste. But right now, I think I'm really interested to see Jean waiting at the maze for Lorenzo and to find out maybe what he's thinking. Not just when he realizes that Lorenzo is not making the meeting, but also, maybe there's something about the maze in the darkness when he feels alone that brings to mind this darkness that he has seen in the church very recently.
Yes, it certainly does, and he is beginning to wonder how God intends to punish the cardinal, because he believes that God has not spoken to him, but something did, and he's not even certain if it's his own nature that spoke to him, because the cardinal has made a promise to God, and yet now he seems to have broken it, and yet seems prepared to do nothing about it. So as he enters, as he settles into the center of the maze, his mind is whirling on how God might punish the cardinal. And where is Lorenzo?
How long? Sorry, that's my dog.
There's dogs in the maze.
Yeah. Werewolf.
Werewolf was lost in the maze. Yeah. There's obviously something very interesting out there that he's interested in. In terms of kind of Jean's state of mind, waiting for Lorenzo, how long does he wait for Lorenzo, and what finally kind of prompts him to give up and to go to this or not go to the recital?
I think it is probably the sound of Lorenzo's voice singing at the other side of the garden that will prompt Jean to get up and set off to the recital where he should have been 20 minutes ago.
Okay, so yeah, I think an outdoor salon is quite exciting. What do you think, Lorenzo? It's it's Midsummer's Night.
Oh.
Didn't we kind of establish it was in that neighborhood last time?
Yes, and I imagine there's a gorgeous little sort of clamshell with wonderful acoustics out near not far from the Rose Garden.
Yeah, so there's an array of couches and comfortable chairs, and basically they've moved part of the palace out, ruining this incredibly expensive furniture that is not garden furniture, but all in the interest of good taste and decadence. What I wonder, is there something about this this setup that reminds you of Italy, of your home?
Well, yes. I mean, it is warmer in Italy than it is here, and so I'm really enjoying that summer has arrived, and and there is I believe that Chloe has in arranging this salon has brought in some Italian wine just to sort of, and has maybe even put up a few sort of Italian motif decorations, somewhat in celebration of me giving this recital, which I'm very flattered by.
And for Orly, outside at night, I think even with some torches and braziers lighting the things, this kind of this darkness kind of, I think, disarms most of the courtiers that are used to being inside and candlelight. How does this make you feel? This kind of, in some ways, it's darkness, and in some ways, it's quite pastoral. How does this strike or vampire?
Yeah, I think there's. I mean, Aurelie is always possessed of a lot of self-confidence, but that it sort of goes beyond that, and she is, when she moves through the garden, even in her sort of long skirts and stuff, there it is almost like she's stalking. There's a predatory edge to her. She's sort of in her element here, and that sort of shows in her manner.
So are most people, either, I guess maybe there's a certain amount of night blindness. People are staring at the lights, acting exactly like the oblivious prey that they are. You could take any one of these people, and no one would know.
Yeah, exactly. I think as she's sort of walking around, I think this is probably when, she does see an older gentleman. He's got sort of a sort of fairly conservative powdered wig on, and a little pince nez perched on the end of his nose. But I think she sees him watching Jean-Baptiste, and the way he watches Jean-Baptiste reminds her of the way Jean-Baptiste reminds her of the way that Jean-Baptiste looked at her earlier. That's a very intensely interested, but cold and calculating rather than impassioned.
And what is this gentleman's name?
I think he is he's the Baron de Montfort, and he is obviously an aristocrat, but he is also a professor at the university in Paris. I think he's possibly actually, I want to say he's his particular, or what he's one of these classic sort of Enlightenment era polymath types. But I think he's got a particular focus on astronomy, and he's personally built several sort of complicated orreries at the university.
I have a feeling on the sheet, actually, there's Stephen Delan, the actor. strikes me as someone who could be like this cold and calculating. If you, I just raised him up onto the sheet now. If that strikes you as a good person.
Yeah, that looks good. Yep.
Okay. Baron de Montfort. Okay. For Jean-Baptiste, I wonder, do you notice this, the way he looks at you, or is there some kind of past encounter that you've had that seemed innocuous at the time, but now strikes you as very meaningful?
I would say I don't notice that because I'm the only thing I'm looking for is Lorenzo, and I don't even know why. But everyone else is of no interest for me tonight. How very odd. But I must find him.
Okay.
I will find him. And then, I don't know. Something will happen. But first, I must find him.
Okay. I think at this point, Jean arrives on the scene. You know, the Lorenzo's recital has just begun. Maybe there's some warm-up music or whatever, but that didn't carry across the gardens like Lorenzo's voice did. So, you know, 5 or 6 minutes later, Jean enters. Are you, do you enter like as normal people would in the crowd, or are you coming from an entirely unexpected direction?
I think I'm coming from an unexpected direction, out of the depth of the garden, to the edge of the crowd. There will be braziers illuminating the stage where Lorenzo is performing, and there will be seats, I think, at the front for the Queen, maybe her closest confidants, and then the rest of the dozen or so hangers-on who will have come with the various invitees. And I'll be loitering at the back of that crowd in the shadows, I think, looking intently at Lorenzo and wondering why he broke his promise to me.
Indeed. Why don't you read out what happens when someone breaks their promise to you, so that everyone is on the same page?
Bear with me. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. So, yes. When someone breaks a promise or contract made to you, take a string on them. When spending a string to even out the score and get justice on a broken promise, add these options to pulling strings. They fuck up something simple at a crucial moment, suffering 1 harm if appropriate, or I add 2 to my roll on an act of vengeance. So I think I'll just let that sink in on Lorenzo for a moment. As he reaches a very, very high final note. And then I think I might spend the string I just gained. Because as Lorenzo's performance is reaching a crescendo, it could be an act of God or an act of fairy, I don't know. But a spark from one of these braziers wafts across the stage into Lorenzo's open mouth, just as he is reaching the pinnacle of that highest note, causing him to cough and splutter. And there's a kind of stunned silence. And I think that might count as 1 social harm in this circumstance. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, that sounds something like that sounds about right. Is that how we're doing harm? Are we doing social harm?
Well, I mean, as an ember going into your mouth, I think that might be 1 actual harm.
1 actual harm. Sure. I mean, I imagine we can think of harm as being like sort of a stress condition as well. It's sort of, I think everything is maybe mushed together.
I guess the way you can get rid of harm in the game certainly makes it not always entirely physical, because you can get rid of it so easily on demand. So, yeah, but maybe relate exactly how this most fetid recital comes to a crashing end because of this errant spark. Lorenzo.
Yeah. So this is this look of horror comes over Lorenzo's face. He can't believe that he choked on such an important occasion. The Queen here. This was meant to be so special for the Queen, and Lorenzo is just absolutely. Lorenzo is beside himself and doesn't know what to do. And Lorenzo just sort of, excuse me, and reaches for a glass of wine and drinks the whole glass of Italian wine down. Excuse me, I must go. And then Lorenzo tries to get away as quickly as possible.
And then from the back of the crowd, there's a desultory.
So I think let's see Jean shut you down. I think that is everyone else is shocked at the end of the recital, but I think no one would dream of enjoying the moment quite like Jean is right now. So yeah, let's see him shut you down.
Oh, with a 6, it reflects rather badly on me, I think. I was hoping it might be picked up.
Let's think about that for a moment. I think, you get shushed by the Queen. Or not. No, she will not deign to shush you because that kind of action is beneath her notice. But she inclines her head to the Duchess Moreau, who is sitting beside her, and the Duchess shushes you, or tuts. If tutting is an entirely French thing, I don't think so. But anyway, everyone takes their cue from that and thinks rather poorly of Jean. Lorenzo, you are running away, I believe.
Yes. Is there a condition that Jean got for that? I didn't. It wasn't clear.
I'm going to think about that. It's not quite outcast or persona non grata, but gauche maybe.
No, I'll take that one. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to run. Oh, let's see. An 8.
Okay. So on a 79 of running away, you get away, but choose one. You run into something worse, you cause a big scene, or you leave something behind. You get to choose.
I'm not sure what I would leave behind. I'm going to go with I run into something worse. My dignity. Fair enough. I like the idea of running into something worse, so I'm going to choose that one.
Okay. Well, let's get back to that. Jean-Baptiste, are you in the crowd during this recital, or do you arrive kind of at this kind of very dramatic moment?
I arrive at the very moment to hear the last moments of that beautiful music, that aria he's singing, and suddenly, for the first time in I don't know how long, something like a smile enters my face, and then this terribly wrong note and everything that happens after it, and I'm like just petrified, staring at the scene and not knowing what to do, but constantly looking at Lorenzo. And as soon as he leaves, I just get up and excuse me, and get my way through the crowd, trying to follow him.
Okay. And orally, is this at all satisfying, or does this stymie your plans for the night?
I think the way Jean-Baptiste reacts to Lorenzo's exit is interesting, because she knows they spent some time together earlier. So I think she certainly marks that. But I think she's actually going to circulate around and make her way over to Father Jean.
So, despite the turned backs now, leaving Jean on the outside with a cold shoulder, you are gracious enough to approach him. How does that go?
I'm not sure that I've met the Lady Aurelie before. I'm relatively new at court.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think you've heard, or what do you think Jean has heard about you, Aurelie?
Probably yeah, I think that I suppose the gossip about her is that she is trying to think what the right word. I mean, I suppose just is the fact that, yeah, she's a, you know, probably a two-faced snake is probably the I think that is people's general impression of her. Well, certainly the what's most likely to be gossiped about her behind her back. And yeah, I think she's going to just glide up next to the father, and sort of with her fan out. She says, "Well, I thought you clerical types were rather partial to eunuchs."
I think that because I'm feeling that my behavior was rather too unsophisticated, this is just another assault on that unsophistication, that I would possibly feel attraction to this castrato, and I will defend myself angrily. Madam, you offend Holy Mother Church by even suggesting such. How could you possibly believe that to be the case?
Well, I believe me, Father, I did not mean any offence by it. After all, I merely thought that castrati were rather popular in Rome. I can assure you, causing insult was the furthest thing from my mind.
Well, I am insulted, madam, on behalf of Mother Church, and I think I'm going to try and shut her down, because I've already had one really bad move this evening, Sadly, I'm not very good at that kind of thing. The cutting remark does not come easily to Father Jean. So he will roll another fail, another 5. 3 on the trot. So I failed to shut her down completely, demonstrating my lack of wit and sophistication even more.
So I think maybe it's Orly's complete control and impassiveness that makes your attempt at a cutting remark just fall flat. How do you like the idea, Orly, of us just saying that? All right, let's act as if you just rolled a 10+ on a shut down against Jean. Give you those kind of mechanical benefits.
Certainly, yeah, that works. So yeah, so I just pull up the shut someone down. I hardly ever succeed on shutting someone down, so I don't know them off the top of my head very well. I think I'm going to take a string on the father. I have one already. I'll add one to that, and I don't believe the father has one on me, so I think that works.
No, that works perfectly.
Yep.
Entirely appropriate.
And I think Aurelie will just snap her fan shut and say, "Oh, of course, Father, I do understand how important it is that you avoid being seen to be impious." And then she's just going to sort of glide off.
Leaving Father Jean feeling even smaller.
Jean-Baptiste, you chase after Lorenzo, but he enters the maze. And as soon as you reach the maze, you lose sight of him.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of what seems like hours, although I'm not sure if you probably have access to a pocket watch or something like this, or you maybe have an innate sense of the time.
I am a pocket watch, yes.
Yeah. I think that kind of feeling of being trapped in the maze feeds into your feeling that is bringing out your darkest self.
Oh yes.
How does Jean-Baptiste appear to us when he emerges from the maze without Lorenzo?
We established it's midsummer, right? So the night ends quickly, I guess. And at some point, when the sun begins to rise, he finally finds the way out of the maze. But for anyone who's there to see him, it's easy to realize he has changed. His clothes are completely torn, such as if he were at some point not running through the maze, but just through the bushes and the trees and the hedges, whatever is there, just right through it. His face is scratched, his body is scratched. His eyes, usually with that soulless stare, have kind of a mad appearance, sort of a desperate look, and he's all the time he is holding. And his shirt is open, and there's a key in a hole in his chest, and he's constantly winding it up. Need more energy. Must find Lorenzo. He's mumbling at some points in French, and some points in German. He's speaking madly and wildly, looking around finally the exit. Is Lorenzo here? Lorenzo, where are you? Bist du hier? Lorenzo.
So I think some maid or scullery servant finds you kind of just wandering outside of the maze, and she drags you kind of into the palace, into the kind of rear kitchens, because they don't recognize you in your current state. And they don't know what to do with you for a while until someone who does recognize you will find you. Lorenzo, when you plunge into the maze, you are not sure where you're going. You've been here in the daylight and it seems so simple. Is there something about this maze that seems dangerous to you now in the darkness, now in your state of despair?
Yes, yes. There are. Well, I noticed that that some of the area that I've wandered into, some of the rose bushes seem to have not been trimmed recently, and they're much thornier than I see the paths. And again, it feels like I've sort of stumbled onto an area where it hasn't been. Somehow the groundskeepers haven't been here recently, and there are like I think I find myself slipping in a muddy area and having trouble keeping my balance here.
And you find yourself, maybe your shoe comes loose in a root, and your fine silk stockings are ruined with this heavy clay. And then when you've slipped, someone helps you to your feet. A dark, imposing figure that feels very, very strange, very thorny. I'm wondering, is this something that you have encountered before, or do you think it knows you?
It reminds me of someone that when I was young, when I was 12, a man who I did not see well at the time. I was sort of off in another room, but there was a man came to visit my father and told him that I had a beautiful voice and it would be a shame if I lost that voice, and told my father how he could give me the operation. And my family did not have a great deal of money, so my father took him up on that. And I did see this man as he turned to walk out, and so I only saw him from the back. But seeing this person now reminds me of that gentleman.
And this thing says to you, you'll be much more useful outside to me, to all of us, Lorenzo. I'm afraid Jean needs your help.
Jean? Father Jean?
Father Jean needs your help. Only you can bring out his true self.
What his true self? He is a good holy man, what could I do to bring out his true self? I can try to sing for him, but after how I've performed tonight, I don't know if I can ever sing again. If I can't sing, I'm nothing. If oh, I would do anything for Father Jean. I love him. He is such a beautiful, pious man. I would do anything for Father Jean. What could I do for him?
If you bring him back here and lie with him, not in the way that he will say he wants, but in the way he truly wants, then I will repair your voice.
Here, anywhere in the maze, or here in particular? It's so rough. It's so rugged and feral here.
Exactly.
Oh, all right. I will do what you say. I will do what you say. Who are you?
Nobody need know my name, Lorenzo. That kind of thing can only get dangerous for you and for me. Call me and I will know what you want.
What is his distinguishing feature? What does he look like?
His distinguishing feature is everything about him is rough in kind of a thorny sense. You know, when he lifts you to your feet after you've slipped, there are little pinpricks. There's little scrapes on your hand. He smells not mossy, but that kind of rotting mud smell that happens if you have still water that hasn't been moved in a while.
How is he
rotting tree trunks?
So how is he dressed? I'm imagining he's not. Does he look like a groundskeeper? Would I mistake him for a groundskeeper, perhaps?
Maybe. I mean, he's dressed in what you would think is quite a sensible coat and a sensible hat. Yeah, but not anything stylish, but very rough. That's the sense you get from him.
Okay. And his eyes?
You can't see his eyes. They're far too dark in the midnight.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then I will call for the thorny man when I need you.
And he just, I think, steps away and disappears into the undergrowth. And I guess when you turn around, there's a gap in the hedge right there.
I think as I'm leaving, I perhaps take some of my silk shirt and I leave bits of it sort of hanging from a thorns here and there, so I can find my way back. A bit of a marking a trail for myself.
Okay. Let's go back to Orally. I think as the recital is breaking up, the Queen arrives by your elbow and wants to ask you a favor. She thinks that you would be a very useful person to have on her side. and she is wondering if perhaps Madame de Breville might have some kind of an accident tonight.
I can certainly inquire after her health and check that everything is well with her, Your Highness. I am if she is indisposed for a time, then I am sure I can get some time with her. We have both lost husbands, even if some of us have found others.
Well, indisposed for a time isn't quite what I had in mind, though I suppose eternity is a measure of time.
It certainly is, Your Highness, it certainly is.
I think I'll give you a string on the Queen for that.
Sure thing.
Okay. Let me think. Let's see who. I think Baron de Montfort is going to collect Jean-Baptiste from a stool in the kitchen. He is the person who, for some reason, is gone to by the kitchen staff to help this poor poor vagrant who the kitchen staff have discovered. Jean-Baptiste.
Lorenzo, are you there?
And he leads you by the hand out of the kitchen until you're in a quiet stretch of corridor, and he I think draws aside your shirt, uncovering the keyhole, and he takes a look at it. Maybe he feels the key inside the keyhole, and tuts. You have been winding yourself a little bit too much, Jean-Baptiste. You should take better care of yourself.
What are you saying? Everything is so blurry. I'm not sure if I understand your words. What?
You must keep your windings regular, regardless of whatever state you're in.
How do you know about me? Do you know about that too? And I'm pulling down the rest of my shirt to show the tattoo, which says experiment number and then failed in red ink. Do you know about that?
Jean-Baptiste, in my eyes, you were never a failure, but we have responsibilities.
Tell me what you know. Everything.
Let's go to your office. Maybe we can discuss it there.
All right. But I want full disclosure. And then, when I know everything, I will go and tell Lorenzo. This seems reasonable. Yes,
Okay.
I walk down to my laboratory very quickly. Yes, and like a million of thoughts, just millions of questions come to my mind, and I want to ask them all at once.
Jean, how do you pass this night? And how do things seem changed in the morning?
I think I'm probably walking despondently in the gardens towards the maze, which is where I normally find peace. And it wouldn't surprise me if at the point I arrive at the maze, Lorenzo is exiting from it. And I think that my reaction is to apologize. Lorenzo, I'm sorry. I was very disappointed when you didn't appear for our meditation and prayer. And so I will admit that when I arrived at the soiree, at your recital, I was not wishing good things for you. And I fear that in some perverse way, my prayers were answered. And therefore I feel terribly responsible for what has happened.
No, no, Father John, do not say that. How could you have been responsible? Maybe it was my guilt. It must have been that. You didn't do anything wrong. By the way, I want to pause here for a moment to point out that I actually have a move called forgiveness is your my armor. Excuses are my armor. When you ignore some blatant problem with your lover or how they treated you, I get to mark experience. So, it is totally. It is so kind of you to say that. It was me who just lost it. I lost my voice. I wish I could make it up to you now by singing for you now, but I'm just afraid that I would choke again. I don't know. Father, I promise you I will never be late to meet with you again, ever. You're so important to me. You're such a good man, and you have so much to teach. I'm put my hand out toward you, and you can see it's got some like red marks from the thorns, and the silk from my shirt is torn a little bit, and I reach my hand out toward you.
I take the hand and I dab it with a handkerchief, and say that if this was indeed some terrible act of God, then let us seek God's peace. Come, walk with me, and I lead Lorenzo into the maze.
Yes, Lorenzo follows with you and looks with just adoration into your eyes.
Despite the darkness, Jean's absolutely, he knows the maze perfectly and almost by instinct navigates to the center. And then says, sometimes when it seems as though God is not listening, I believe it is because the trappings of the world get between us and our Lord. And so I sometimes pray naked. Will you join me in prayer, Lorenzo?
Will that? Can we? I would love to, but my hand is so tender right now from the thorns. Can you try and maybe, I don't know, put a bandage on them or something? I fear I'm going to continue bleeding.
Yes, I will.
Lorenzo takes off his shorts and reveals his young
and
firm body and presents his arm for you.
And I dress it delicately, and lay the cassock on the ground, and begin to undress, to lie in God's light. And I think that probably counts as me turning him on.
I'm not sure who got there first.
Yeah, right. I think I also, while we're taking a moment to discuss this, I think this may also trigger healing. When you take time to tend your wounds once per session, you may heal 1 harm. If someone else is there with you, tending your wounds delicately and intimately, and perhaps with erotic subtext, you may heal an additional harm. I only have 1 harm, but I think that would work.
So, which one rolls?
Do we need to roll, or we could both roll? I don't know. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess
well, look,
I would be inclined.
Rolling gives us
roll.
It gives us.
I have 3 strings on Lorenzo. I will burn one to tempt him to do what I want. Does that mechanically cut to the chase?
Well, it certainly gives him an incentive. So if he, basically intends to do what you want, he gets an XP.
And then it could be that that's me done. I've achieved my bit. But it could be that he needs to go further. Yeah.
So I guess maybe you're doing that, and maybe Lorenzo will, in doing that, roll to turn Jean on. If that sounds good to you.
Okay. Okay.
So how unashamed, or I guess unashamed is the other way around, right? But Lorenzo, let's see you roll then.
Yes. All right. And because Jean is my lover, I get a +1.
Yeah.
To win his affections.
Win his favor. Yeah. I think that counts.
What? Well, that didn't work. This is a 0.
This happens for some strange reason when
it might be because I added the modifier.
Yeah, I don't know. But you rolled if you hover over the result, you can see you rolled a
6 plus 6. Oh, so I actually got a 15.
That's a 15. Yeah. It was pretty good.
Well,
that's pretty emphatic.
Yeah. So I guess you get a string on Jean, and then he chooses one of those 3 options.
I don't, with 15, even the most pious priest in the world is going to struggle. So I think that probably Jean has to give himself to Lorenzo.
I mean, the way I see it is they start lying naked in the center of the maze, and after some time of whispering sweet nothings to each other in the eyes of God, Lorenzo offers Jean his hand and guides him, both of them naked, leaving their clothes in the center of the maze, guides Jean over to the thorny, wild part of the maze, and embraces Jean more passionately there. I could even now that I have 2 strings on Father Jean, I think it makes sense for me to spend one of those also to tempt Father Jean then to do more than just lie naked.
And I think in the face of those die rolls, I have no alternative. And I have a suspicion the veil may need to come down very quickly.
Okay. Well, we have right. We have the Fey sex move,
Yep.
which is about promises. So let's hear that, and then let's go directly to the dark self, right? Because we know that's happening as well.
When you lie naked with another, you can ask them for a promise. If they refuse, take 2 strings on them. The promise is that when Jean needs an alibi, Lorenzo will provide it. When Father Jean says that he was with Lorenzo, Lorenzo will agree.
Of course, Father Jean. I would do anything for you. I promise it from the depths of my heart. I promise that I will never be late to meet you ever again, and I promise that I will always be your alibi.
Perfect.
Just hold me again, Father Jean. Hold me again.
And what's the darkest self?
The darkest self is everything you say seems a promise. Everything you hear seems a promise. If a promise is broken, justice must be wrought in trickery or blood. You aren't subject to the human rules of mercy. To escape your darkest self, you must in some way rebalance the scales of justice. Confession with Father Jean is going to be very interesting in the near future.
Perfect. Okay. Let's cut to Orly. Are you paying Madame de Breville a visit, or are you up to some other kind of no good this night?
Yeah, I think I am going to go and find Madame de Breville. Yeah, I will head. I will head to her chambers, I suppose.
And what about these speaks to the amount of power and influence that she has accrued over this past few years? Certainly the past year in your absence. What favors of the king do you see everywhere?
Yeah, so I think again it's the fact that her apartments are close to the royal apartments. They're obviously not right near, but they're very close. Like, I think her room isn't big. It's not a she doesn't have like a lavish suite or anything like that. But it is placed very close to the center of power in a physical sense.
Is there any sign of her kind of devotion to her dead husband that kind of spark some kind of kinship or sympathy for her?
Yeah, I think she has there's a inside her chambers there's a it's essentially just there's nothing particularly all that fancy about it. It's just like the sort of a little shield with his coat of arms on it, sort of thing, still up on the wall. But draped over it is like a sash, like just sort of the sort of sash of office, I suppose, that he wore. But it's that sort of personal touch that means that this is more than just that she does still clearly have some affection for her former husband. It's a sort of personal touch, not just a a symbol of her family sort of thing, or his family.
And how do you wreak havoc upon her? Like, how do you, I guess, kill her if that's your intention?
Yeah. So I think I will enter and sort of speak to her and say, Madame, I wish to speak with you. We have not had a chance since my return to court. I wish you to know I still regret what happened those years ago. And whilst we have both moved on, I am sorry that what happened. And yeah, she will sort of essentially start out having a conversation with her. And essentially once she's got her guard down, she will sort of lean into her and just begin to feed on her. And yeah.
So I think Madame de Breville's attitude towards you is that she has obviously won, whatever petty disputes you have had. She is clearly the superior person, and it's almost like she thinks you're coming here to become her client, to become her kind of wingman is the wrong word for it, but to come under her aegis at court.
Yeah.
And even though she knows there's something else going on with you, she doesn't believe you're a threat until it's too late.
Yeah, and I think so she'll drain sort of the blood from her, and I think she sort of does the she even sort of presses the little puncture wounds close, maybe puts a little wax over them, something like that, just to make them less obvious, and just leaves her sort of laid out sort of on her chaise longue, sort of beautiful and pale, as if she'd just fallen asleep and not woken again.
Perfect. So let's go to the doctor's office. The Baron de Montfort, brings you back, and he obviously knows where your office is. For a time, maybe it seems like he's leading you instead of vice versa. And he sits you down like you're a child. But again, it's obvious that he knows what you are. It's not like he thinks you're in shock and he'll make you a cup of tea, all right, or whatever. He says, after kind of glancing around the office and not remarking on something, but obviously taking everything in, I realize, Jean-Baptiste, you have many questions, and I feel like we have failed you in ways more essential than you failed us.
But still, that's the word that you, whoever you are, that you engraved on my forearm. So how is it that you failed me?
They wanted you to be a killer, Jean-Baptiste. They wanted you to be some kind of a soulless machine that would kill upon command. But you failed those tests.
And he looks down to the key still in his chest. But I am a machine. At nighttime, when it's completely still outside. I can even hear it ticking inside my body.
But you weren't capable of the kind of emotion that can force us to kill strangers for no reason other than ambition or personal national pride.
Had you talked to me yesterday, I would have said that I don't even understand the word emotion, but today is different. So what have you put inside of me? You and who else?
What do you mean? What did we put inside of you? The mechanisms to make you do whatever you wanted. I don't know what you're experiencing right now, but it is not what we intended.
Can you make it go away? It's very painful. And de Montfort can see how he grasps. I don't know. Are we sitting at a table? How he grasps the table with his hands, and the wood starts cracking as he applies way too much pressure. So his rage is channeling.
So yeah, he looks a little bit uncomfortable, but he bids you to lie on your examination table, and he kind of takes the tools out that you keep for, I don't know, day-to-day maintenance, and says, "These will have to do. I can recalibrate you, but if I do this, they will know that I've met with you, and they will ask how you were, and I must report the truth, that you are capable of some kind of emotion."
So you mean more will come to face me? I'm prepared for that. I am prepared for that. But before you do this, I want to know one thing. What is my real name?
Your real name.
Is it this number? XQ471912Y. Is that my name?
We just called you by the initial at the start of the sequence. It was much easier to call you X than the entire serial number.
Okay, then do what you want to do. Just recalibrate me. Just make the pain go away. I'm not sure if I can take it any longer.
So he he accesses your mechanism, and right before he recalibrates you, he says, when you wake up, everything will be as it was before, and that's the last thing you experience that night.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Okay, I think we're about at our runtime. Anyone? I know we won't have Lorenzo at the next session. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
So maybe we can have a brief coda scene for you, just to tie it up. I know you'll be at the final session, but just to kind of put a little bow on the storyline for now from you, and maybe a similar kind of tie up scene for everyone else, just to segue into the next session.
Yeah. Did you have something in mind? Or,
no, I think I would leave that to you.
I am somewhat curious what was going on with that mysterious thorny man that I met in the maze. I think after Father Jean leaves, I might I think I might go back to that place in the maze where I'm imagining Father Jean and Lorenzo made very rough, passionate sex, and probably have thorn marks all over my body and clay in my fingers, and I think I stretch out to my full height and feel my toes digging into the thick clay, and I begin singing the last part of that aria that I was singing for the Queen when I choked, and I just to convince myself that I can hit that high note and finish it in a resounding way again.
Yeah, and I think maybe when you're coming to this part in the piece, kind of under your soles, you can kind of feel, the rough thorns kind of buoying you up a little bit, and you hit that top C or whatever, stronger than you ever have.
Nice. And Lorenzo, okay. Nice.
Let's go to Jean for a quick wrap up.
We see the chapel. We see Jean kneeling, stripped to the waist before the altar, beating his back with a length of rose. And it makes no difference at all.
Great. And with Orally.
Yeah, I think there's it's one of those scenes like you get in the films where there's obviously commotion going on somewhere. Something has, obviously happened, and there's much activity going on, but it's a fairly peaceful scene where the Aurelie has been called to wait upon the Queen, and we just see Aurelie sort of curtsy, kneel down before the Queen. She takes her the Queen's hand in hers and places a kiss on the back of it, and it leaves a red mark that's almost certainly lipstick on the back of the Queen's hand.
Almost certainly. And then finally, Jean-Baptiste.
He opens his eyes and sees that the sun shines through the window. He is in his bed. He is fully dressed. The clothes he was wearing the day before, torn and destroyed, are gone, and he is in a clean shirt. And he gets up, and as if someone had programmed these words into his head, he looks out of the window and says, "If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear." And he ponders for a long while on these words and looks out of the window. For some reason, when he searches his heart, Lorenzo is not there any longer. And that feels very good.
Perfect. Okay. Let's stop broadcast and then have a quick debrief. Okay.